Hi, this is James Governor, co-founder of RedMonk, and we are here for a RedMonk conversation. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Java, where we are with Java. I feel like this is an environment that is, my whole career has been about this thing. So I feel like it's part of the woodwork, part of the furniture, and I know something about it. But I may not know as much about it as my two guests here, who I'd like to introduce. Georges Saab and Manish Gupta. So let's start with you, George. Why don't you introduce yourself, say a little bit about what you do?
Sure thing. Thanks, James. I'm the Vice President of the Java Platform Group at Oracle and the Chair of the Open JDK Governing Board.
Okay, and Manish?
Hi, my team's responsible for marketing of Java and GraalVM globally.
Awesome. And so I think I'll start with just like some of the stuff that I think about where we are, in the world of Java. And like one thing is that the ecosystem seems in pretty reasonable health. From a governance perspective, we continue to see. I think what's important actually is that it's a multipolar world. That there are different organizations that are all contributing, and Java has always been at its strongest when that's the case. We'll talk a little bit about OpenJDK later, but I think from my perspective, that's one of the things that is good to see. And tied to that is probably, I certainly remember when the gestation of a new Java version was kind of longer than the gestation of an elephant. This was a very, very long and drawn out process. And sometimes, even longer than we would expect. And so from that perspective, we moved to a much more regular cadence of Java releases. And I think that's made life easier for organizations. But from Oracle's perspective and how you're interacting with your customers and the ecosystem at large, what do you think, George, are the sort of the key differences in terms of the approach you've taken vis-a-vis 6-month releases and the new approach around LTS?
Yeah, this was a very conscious effort that we made a few years ago after the release of Java 9 to move from, as you say, these multi-year big bang releases to a time-based cadence with release every 6 months. And as you say, the real issue for, above all, developers with the big bang approach was you couldn't really predict when something new was going to come along. It took ages in between. When it came out, because of Java's commitment to compatibility, we pretty much had to get it right out of the box. And so moving, and because it was feature-based, we had to make sure those features were right before we could declare it final. And so you could never figure out, how much time that was going to take, especially when planning one of these releases out, 3-4 years in advance. So moving to the 6-month time-based cadence basically meant that people know now when a release is going to come, and they get these regular weekly or bi-weekly bills that come out where they can see the features as they're in progress. They can pretty much be guaranteed it's going to come out on the day. Every single one of those, in fact, that we've done has come out as planned as far as timing goes. And then there's a facility we've added in for doing preview features. And so what this means is that a new feature comes in to a mainline release first, generally as something that's behind a preview switch. So I won't accidentally, use it. I have to kind of opt into doing it. But having done that, I can get a picture of how the feature is going to work and use it, in my real life use cases without having to download something completely different, and give feedback on that. And so this means for developers, they've gotten two things. They've gotten features in their hands more quickly, and they've gotten features at a time when they could try it out and give us feedback and help us make sure that it's as good and as solid and as right as it can be before it becomes GA and is going to, remain compatible for the next 2 decades.
Okay, and so I think one thing with Java, there's more competition in the language space in general than there used to be. So, back in the olden days, really felt like it was just this sort of, like you had Java on one side, you had .NET languages on the other. Obviously today, there's TypeScript, JavaScript continues to make huge progress. Python, all these other languages, Golang. there's a lot of talk about like modern language features. Now, from RedMonk's perspective, we're all about developer-led technology adoption. So the developer experience, what do developers want? What are they looking for? And so from a developer experience, I guess very specifically, and again, I'll just ask this of you, George, like what are some of the specific features in the next release that developers, should be looking out for, likely to be excited by?
Yeah, so this is something that, as you know, the rumors of Java's death have always been out there since it first came out, right? I think you called that out.
In fact, I've got to tell you, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've done a Java is dead or Java, Java's back again talk. And, Stephen has done them, I've done them, and I've been doing these for, at least 10 years, now, where you have to pop up and say, here is the data that we have. One of my famous quotes, where did I say my own famous quote? One of my favorite quotes. My famous quotes.
Someone brilliant once said.
Brilliant, right? Is that when web shops grow up, they turn into Java shops. Yeah. And I think we've seen that. It still continues to be a thing that you might begin with, and we still see a lot of this. A monolith built in something perhaps more modern. But as you start building out and looking for more reliability, you're breaking things into microservices, you're looking to increase the size of your development team and bring in more skills. Yeah, we've repeatedly seen organizations using a lot more Java. And I think that has been an ongoing factor. So sorry, back over to you there.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And what I mean by that is, we look now at what's going on and we see a lot of competition in the space. And certainly the numbers show that there are sort of more alternatives than ever that developers have available to them. But it's always been the case that, there was something else, there was something new, there was something trendy. And for us with Java, what we've always tried to do is, look at what are the things that are coming where we can help developers prepare and make it so that both the new things they're writing and their existing workloads are constantly getting better and giving them basically a dividend on their choice of Java in the first place. And so, in some cases, these are things behind the covers, right? There are things in the runtime that we make better so that an existing workload you have just works smoothly as new generations of hardware come out. Whether it be, new generations of chips that all of a sudden, like the Java runtime handles optimization for those and makes your workload run faster. It can also be things like improvements to garbage collection, right? So that the workload that you have that's handling a load of transactions all of a sudden can handle better latency and larger heaps. I've never seen any developer out there go, boy, I wish my runtime didn't handle such large heaps, right? So, I think that in addition to those things that are sort of transparent to the developer, we've been doing a lot of things to improve the Java language itself. And this basically is, with the reflection of, as people have gone along, looking at programming models that people like. So as an example, as you know, Java's always been very strong at object-oriented programming. And basically, we saw functional programming becoming more popular. And we thought about how can we add, the ability to have a functional style of programming in Java, but, not be at odds with its object-oriented roots. And of course, doing something like that is simple, right? You just, bolt it on the side. Well, for us, that's not good enough. It can't feel bolted on the side. It has to feel natural. And so with some of these features, that's one of the reasons why, things have taken a little while, because, we didn't just take the first version or the second version or the third version we did. We really thought about how to make it so that it just feels simple and obvious. You saw this with lambdas in Java 8, which I think is one of the reasons for its immediate and enduring popularity. We're seeing this now with the new releases, with the 6-month releases and the 17 LTS, where the adoption and the pickup, the interest is really strong. And I think with these 6-month releases, what you're going to see is, you can't just look at one release and say, what are the new things in Java? I think you have to look at the body of work over time, because the style of development we have with these projects looking at particular areas and having smaller increments of change and improvement come in means that, with that trend, you can see things like pattern matching introduced to Java over the course of a number of releases. And so that's one of the things that I'm very excited about, is these improvements to the Java language and its use in the libraries, but also what that means in terms of how we can use it under the covers to make the implementation better and better and more performant, and basically make it so that every release is more exciting for developers.
Okay. Yeah, that completely makes sense. You've got the rest of the industry there keeping you on your toes. You talk about implementation. I guess a question for Manish then. One of the undoubted strengths of I'm kind of proud as somebody that lives in London, is some of the work that the folks in London have done around Open JDK. That's something that you've supported, and so yeah, tell me a bit about Open JDK and why that's important in terms of this overall vision of what Oracle's trying to achieve with Java today.
I'll start and I'll let George jump into the process itself. But one of the founding principles is openness for Java, and that has been the case from day one and continues to be. Participation from the community, involvement from not just large corporations, but by individuals and developers around the world from all industries is really what makes Java have the long history and the life that it's had. And we think it's going to have another 26 to 30 years ahead of it. And OpenJDK, brings with it transparency. It brings with it inclusion of over 1,000 participants. That is what makes innovation hum. That is what makes this last for as long as it has. And just like that, we have many elements of the community that Oracle participates with, sponsors, and engages 350 plus user groups, many different organizations, support through Oracle Academy for students, through Oracle University for formalized certification, and the list goes on. So community involvement, participation is really foundational. Okay.
Anything to add there, George?
Yeah, I would say
it's Georges Saab. Of course, he has something to add.
Of course. Yeah, I think the OpenJDK community is strong and vibrant. It's thriving. I think if you look at the numbers as we publish, at every one of these 6-month releases, you can see the numbers of contributions and contributors continuing to grow. And I think that's a testament to the fact that people are interested in the direction of Java and want to take part. It's kind of interesting, right? I think, as Manish said, Java has been a technology that from its very beginning has been about multiple parties around the industry contributing in some form, right? Mm-hmm. So even from the beginning with Write Once, Run Anywhere, that was true. Obviously, the form has changed over time to the point where, it's now done through the OpenJDK community primarily. And what this means is that we have now not just vendors who are interested in, for instance, porting Java to a particular hardware or software platform, OS platform that's interesting for them and their customers. We also see people who are tools vendors coming and taking part. We see hardware manufacturers themselves getting involved in order to contribute knowledge of how, what kinds of optimizations runtime can do. And we also see, lots of distinguished individuals taking part, helping with things like Java concurrency and other interesting things out there. Finally, we see people that I would sort of characterize as advanced users. So this can be, the companies who maybe themselves have a really large Java workload and have been pushing the envelope on the technology, coming back and helping us understand, okay, where can we make improvements? How can we make it better for these extreme kind of use cases that maybe aren't what everyone needs, but generally make the technology better for everyone.
Okay. So, that ecosystem is super important. The openness is important in order that we can continue to have innovation. I think that this ties into the way RedMonk sees the world. That openness has driven us forward. One of the other things that has underpinned a lot of what we're seeing in modern software is this transition to managed services. So Java was frankly pre-cloud. So, one of the questions in my mind, and I guess this is what you're trying to, or what you're delivering with Java Management Service is a more modern approach to interacting with Java with built-in telemetry and that managed service kind of approach that we're seeing in terms of the popular services that developers are adopting today. So tell me a bit about Java Management Service and if there are any specifics about the approach you're taking there that are making things, frankly, better for developers and customers.
Yeah, so Java Management Service is an Oracle Cloud native service. The service itself, the information and the dashboard effectively runs as a cloud service in Oracle Cloud. But it helps developers and enterprises have an idea of all the places that they're running Java, what they're running, an advanced set of metrics of how those workloads are running, what versions are there, anything they might need to think about for the future. So, for instance, it can give you information about upcoming security events and things that you want to prepare for, so you're not caught off guard, right? There, it basically helps you know where you're headed.
And do you take advantage of any of the telemetry? I mean, an understanding of how people are using Java that can then inform your product management, or is that all completely anonymized?
Yeah, it's all completely anonymized. So we don't have data on individual customers that we look at, but we do get information on in general, what kinds of things are going on, so that we can make Java better, with customer opt-in.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage, I think, in terms of that model. Just understanding how a system is used is a great way to frankly make it better. So if we think about the ecosystem again, I'm going to mention some pretty solid Oracle competitors here. It's clear, I think one of the things that shows that Java is healthy is the fact that Google Cloud, the Azure folks, Amazon itself are all investing in Java. They're all trying to win Java workloads. They're competing with you, so that there are choices there from a customer perspective. But I guess the question for me would be, we've been seeing from a multi-cloud perspective certain amount of momentum with OCI. So the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. You've had, well, I guess one great Java win, the platform we're using right now, Zoom, built in Java, running on Oracle Cloud, or at least a solid chunk of it. So as you compete for those workloads, what are some of the things that Oracle is doing vis-a-vis making OCI the best place to run Java workloads?
James, we really believe that OCI is the best place to develop with Java, and it's the best place to run Java workloads. And we continue to invest on many areas to ensure that remains and continues to bring value to OCI. It's a place where you get access to things that you don't have access on other clouds. And I'll give a few examples. You just talked about Java Management Service. Not only is it a cloud, it's an OCI native cloud service, it's available to customers that have a Java SE subscription on-prem. It runs, if you are an OCI customer, you have access to it. And you can track and have visibility into your workloads, whether it's running on just OCI, on multi-clouds, on-prem and hybrid mode. You can pick any of your deployment modes. That's an example of a native service only on OCI. The second piece I can talk about, when you think about microservices and you think about cloud native development, we have provided the entitlement to GraalVM Enterprise as part of the Java SE subscription. So certainly when you have that on-prem, you have access to it. But if you are an OCI customer, again, you have access to the GraalVM Enterprise entitlement. That allows for better performance. If you're running in a native image mode, you're able to get instantaneous startup times, your memory footprint is smaller, and so your cloud bill is smaller. And that's something exclusively available on OCI. You don't get that with other clouds. And over time, we see providing many capabilities for management, for better visibility, for improved performance, and to continue to reduce the cost infrastructure. So the requirements and the resources are smaller. So those are a few examples that you see in OCI today, and we anticipate building many more capabilities that will be available for customers to both develop on and deploy on OCI.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective with OCI, one of the changes, obviously I'm an industry analyst, and I see, I was going to swear there, but I see very many vendor decks, right? And one of the things they quite often have is an ecosystem slide. And just a couple of years ago, it was just here, from a multi-cloud perspective, it would just have the three, it would have Google, Azure, and Amazon logos. Now we increasingly see from an ecosystem perspective, someone puts the slide up and it'll have OCI right on there. And I think that's just a marker of, I mean, that's anecdata for sure. But I think it does show the momentum there. And, I think we do some research at RedMonk looking at just cost for base infrastructure, compute, and so on. And for a while, at least, it seemed like there was some stagnation around pricing. That I think the cloud vendors, the three I'd mentioned, were like, okay, good, we can relax a little bit. We've got our model here. We don't want to cut our own throats. But yeah, Oracle has come along with some very aggressive pricing, which is always going to be. I mean, if you've got aggressive pricing and aggressive salespeople, which certainly Oracle does, that's one way to get some success in the market. So I think that pricing thing has just been really important.
Yep. We think the cost performance value of OCI versus other clouds married with these capabilities that come with Java and the subscription. The two things are really best overall if you're trying to develop on or run your workloads, Java workloads particularly. One of the things we haven't talked about is the fact that Oracle is the steward of the Java ecosystem and has been from day one since its acquisition of Sun, and the fact that it has got access to the best-in-class technical capabilities and resources. So when a customer works with us, not only do they get support like they would with others, but the support comes with the engineering team, and that team works and sits very closely in the same organization as where the development happens. So you've got experienced base of the support engineers that have seen the depth and breadth of challenges you can face with Java workloads, so they can bring that solution to you in a much faster manner. They can access the depth of technical resources on the development side if they need to. And that comes 24/7 all year round in 27 languages. You can't get that anywhere else. Similarly, access to updates to versions that have reached end of public updates. A very important element if you're trying to keep up with the security baseline. You can move at the pace that your business requires, as opposed to having to worry about every 6 months or just sticking with LTS. You can pick and choose your workloads. Some can be upgraded at greater frequency, others at a lower frequency, but you can ensure that you are meeting the security baseline, you're meeting the governance issues, and supporting compliance issues. So all of those things come to you in sort of the best combination of OCI, cloud cost performance, and the subscription capabilities with Java.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of notion of sort of SRE type capabilities for Java in a managed cloud world, yeah, it's so important. So yeah, that makes sense to me. And looking at cloud managed services, George, I think you probably, we've talked about subscription before, and like what is free and what is not. Obviously, Oracle Java is free to use on OCI. But in terms of runtimes and developers and whether they pay for things, yeah, well, we've discussed this a fair bit. So, how should I thought developers wanted everything for free, George.
Yeah, and of course we have the updates of Java 17, the LTS, available under a free license. We actually offer two varieties. One is under an open source GPL license, but we also have a new license which is commercial but free of charge. And we're going to continue doing updates on that 17 release until a year past when the next LTS comes out, and that's currently slated for Java 21. And so part of the reason for that is, we just want to make it easy and simple for developers to be able to choose the best in breed Oracle JDK updates and be able to use those on the workloads that they're developing and putting into production.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, and I was kind of having fun with you a little bit there. The truth is that, well, I will jokingly sometimes say, the only thing that developers want to pay for is Max. So, that's a bit of a thing. But there are any number of services out there that frankly, they cost a few bucks a month and people will pay for. It's difficult. It's always difficult when, people have expectations, things change. We saw that with Docker, where, frankly, they needed an economic model. There's only so much VC money you can burn through before, you get to a stage where you actually do need a few bucks a month model. And that is something that developers, I think, will indeed pay for.
Yeah, well, so again, I mean, what we are charging for with the subscription is basically the capability for enterprises to get long-term support and be able to choose, a time that's convenient for them to update. So,
right.
Developers, I think, mostly ideally want to be looking at new things and moving forward. The pricing for the subscription is really transparent and is based on looking at other kinds of platforms that enterprises depend on for mission critical situations, and offering them that capability of getting a continued stream of updates for a number of years, right? Like we start off at 8 years. We're going to have support for Java 8 through at least 2030, and it came out in 2014. So that's a pretty long period of time, right? So I think also the pricing is there's pricing that's for per processor for server use, server or cloud. There's also for aside from OCI, where of course it's included. And then there's also a facility for desktops and so on. And, just by way of comparison, right, the price for desktops is sort of comparable with, having one latte per month. So not so bad.
I'm an espresso man, but I definitely have more than one a month. I'll tell you that for nothing. And so, what we're hearing, we're also hearing that, like, basically we need to get off fossil fuels before, the Java support will last longer than hopefully our fossil fuel use. So we've all obviously got a lot of work to do there. I think, finish up maybe with one thing it's kind of something dear to my heart. It used to absolutely be the place where everyone came together. So JavaOne is back.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's been a few years in the making, I should say. So ever since Oracle acquired Sun, we've been running JavaOne, and a few years ago, the shift was made to run Code One to incorporate multiple technologies. I think we've all recognized the power of focusing on an ecosystem as big and as vibrant as Java. And while many technologies will be represented, we really wanted to bring back the heart and soul of what this large community is about and what it cares about, is to engage with its peers. Developers want to talk to developers. And so JavaOne's back October 16th through 20th in Las Vegas. It's going to occur in conjunction with Oracle Cloud World. And we're expecting, James, you to show up, and we're going to have several thousand people there, hopefully some fantastic sessions, hands-on labs, and just a great opportunity to bring the community together.
Fantastic. Manish totally puts me on the spot there. I'd like to go to JavaOne. I do feel like Las Vegas, after 2 years of not traveling, I've got to say my desire to return to Vegas is not very substantial. I have done my time there, so we'll see. But nicely put me on the spot, so that was good. George, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think we just heard from so many developers, so many Java developers who missed JavaOne as a dedicated Java conference. One of the things that's always been great and set JavaOne apart from day one is it's a conference by developers for developers. right? So, this is just the best place where you can go and get together and, rub shoulders with the people who are making Java technology and leading it forward. I'm really pleased that I'm going to have a ton of people from my team who are attending and giving talks and hands-on labs, as well as learning from others. So, we look forward to seeing everyone there. One of the reasons for Las Vegas, by the way, San Francisco, wonderful place for conferences, but we did have some challenges over time. With the format and having it there, it's it tends to be a busy place and just doesn't have the kind of facilities that we needed for a conference that's as large as, especially JavaOne happening at the same time as Oracle Cloud World. So we think this is going to be a great experience. We're looking forward to it. There's going to be a possibility for cross-pollination, which we think is positive as well, and we're looking forward to it. So come on out.
Great. Okay. Well, that sounds fantastic. This has been good. Really good to catch up with you both. Hear a little about where Java is today, where it's going. JavaOne is back, and honestly, that is good news. That's something that a lot of people have a lot of fondness to that. You're not wrong. So that's great for the ecosystem, great for developers, and what could be better than that? So thanks for joining me, and that was another RedMonk conversation.
Thank you,
James.